This is exactly what I was talking about when I told you guys years ago that Pat McAfee would not be a good fit at the worldwide leader in woke, ESPN. I remember when he signed his contract. When was that? May of 2022 when they originally signed the deal, or May of 2023 and he debuted the show that September. Whenever he signed his contract, making his show exclusive to ESPN. I told you guys, this was not going to work. At the time, fans of Pat McAfee flooded my comment section calling Uncle Casey a hater. You're just mad because ESPN's paying Pat McAfee $17 million a year. Why in the hell would I be mad about that? I will never be mad at anyone for making money. Well, Casey, that's not true. You don't want WNBA players to be given millions of dollars. Yeah, I'm not the only one. Apparently, the league doesn't want players to be given millions of dollars either. Keyword, given. WNBA players are wanting money to be given to them. I said I'll never be mad at anyone for making money, earning money. But money is not the reason that Pat McAfee is having a hard time at ESPN. The reason I thought Pat McAfee would struggle at ESPN is because he does not fit the culture at the network. Matter of fact, Pat McAfee is the complete opposite of the culture at the worldwide leader in woke. October of 1993, Dennis Rodman was traded to the San Antonio Spurs. Now, when he was traded, he wasn't known as the Dennis Rodman that he eventually became known to be. His first 6 years in the NBA, he was playing for Chuck Daly, someone that he respected, someone who could keep Dennis Rodman under control. He gets to San Antonio, and it's immediately a flaming ass fire. He becomes an inspiration for future WNBA players by dyeing his hair or wearing dresses and wigs. Now, of course, most WNBA players don't wear dresses, but they do like to incorporate the synthetic hair. Dennis Rodman is showing up late to practice. He's being suspended by the team, couldn't get along with Bob Hill or Greg Popovich, who I believe was the general manager at the time in San Antonio. Going into the 95-96 season, Dennis Rodman traded to Chicago, and for the next 3 years, he is damn near a model citizen. Why? Because he respected Michael Jordan. He had a lot of respect for Phil Jackson. He knew they understood his affinity for wearing dresses. He knew they understood his desire to look like a Power Ranger. But he also knew there was only so much they would tolerate. The reason he was a problem in San Antonio, Dennis Rodman had no respect for the organization. The reason it was easy to predict the problems that Pat McAfee would have at ESPN is because I'm a lot like Pat McAfee. Now, obviously, I've never met him personally, but when you watch someone, when you follow their career, doesn't take you very long to figure out the commonalities that you share with them. ESPN is accustomed to having yes men. ESPN's used to having stars like Stephen A. Smith who will do exactly what they're told to do and not ask any questions. And for people like Pat McAfee and Uncle KC, that dog won't hunt, which is why we continue to see these controversies with Pat McAfee every couple of months. And once again, Pat McAfee is publicly airing his grievances with his bosses at the worldwide leader in woke. Make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Link to the second channel in the description below. Earlier today on the second channel, talked about the panic at NBC. Executives at the network of Cox, they are concerned about their broadcast rights deal with the NBA. According to the Wall Street Journal, NBC could lose $1.4 billion in the first year of this deal. Multiply that by 10, and NBC is looking at $14 billion in losses over the next decade. They won't be able to afford the colors to dye their cock's feathers. To make matters worse, Adam Silver is essentially telling NBA fans there's no need for them to watch full NBA games. I'll give you all the details and explain why Adam Silver continues to refuse to address the NBA's problems. So if you haven't already, click the link in the description below, subscribe to the second channel. Headline at Awful Announcing. Pat McAfee hints at issues with College Gameday producers. Yesterday, Pat McAfee revealed behind-the-scenes information on something called Story Time with Instagram, or Stories on Instagram Stories. Whatever the hell it's called, Pat McAfee read an interesting story yesterday afternoon. Apparently, he is once again frustrated with the ongoing criticism that he receives for being on College Gameday. Last fall, The Athletic conducted a poll with ESPN viewers, and the overwhelming majority of viewers wanted Pat McAfee and his ass kicked off College Gameday. Ironically enough, viewers are not the only ones that want Pat McAfee fired from the show. It appears that producers of College Gameday don't want him on the show either. According to Pat McAfee, old white people and old people at ESPN, they really hate me. I have been dealing with this my entire life. Old white teachers, principals, they always hated me. And now, old white people at ESPN hate me. And that includes the producers of College Gameday. Pat McAfee ended story time by saying, "It's been a fun run." Now, I don't know if he is hinting that this could be his final season on College Gameday. I don't know if he was just saying he's had a good time so far on the show. What I do know is old white people allegedly hate Pat McAfee, and he's damn sure hated by some management at ESPN along with the producers of College Gameday. The question is why? Well, I'll show you part of the reason. Watch for yourself.
There was a wise man that once said, whenever there's a night game down here in Baton Rouge, if you stand on the 50-yard line, you can actually smell the whiskey from 102,000 people. So soon as it was announced that we were coming down here, the only song I was playing all week is, "Operator, won't you put me on through? Gotta sing my love down the... Hurry up." They love their ball. All the way from the governor, Jeff Landry, who wants a live tiger on the field tonight, to the boudin in the gumbo that had Drew bands last night. And they told me that if I come in front of these fantastic tigers and I say, "Hey," they'll say, "Whoa."
See? Pass it to Mike.
For old white people, I'm assuming they don't like Pat McAfee because he disrupts tradition. For decades, College Gameday has been the same formulaic show. Desmond Howard sits there and smiles while contributing absolutely nothing. Kirk Herbstreit's been checked out for years and looks like he wants to be anywhere else. At the end of the show, Lee Corso would put on some doofus headgear, crowd would cheer, and the show would be over. For old white people, I guess that's what they enjoyed watching. Pat McAfee changed all of that. He brought a youthful energy to the show. He brought unpredictability. The problem with Pat McAfee, he appeals to a very niche audience, and that audience ain't old white dudes. So it's understandable why they don't like him. And just to be clear, when Pat McAfee says old white dudes, I don't think he's talking about normal people. I think he's talking about old white dudes like Wanker Spanker, or old white women like Keith Olbermann. Katie Boo! But why is he so hated by his colleagues at ESPN? I think part of the reason that Pat McAfee is hated by his colleagues is rooted in jealousy. Pat McAfee is allowed to get away with things that other people at the network are not allowed to get away with. But I think the main reason that Pat McAfee isn't liked at ESPN, Pat McAfee isn't one of them, and he never will be. Pat McAfee is not a hardcore leftist. He's not a political activist disguised as a sportscaster. This is just a dude who doesn't want to grow up. Pat McAfee is someone who just wants to have a good time, and I'm starting to wonder if the good times are coming to an end for Pat McAfee at ESPN. You know, people who are happy at their jobs, you know what they don't do? They don't criticize their employer on social media. They don't publicize their grievances because when you're happy at your job, you don't have any grievances. We see this every couple of months with Pat McAfee. He will get on social media and complain about ESPN. Remember earlier this year when he got Norby Williamson, who had been an executive at the network for decades? Remember earlier this year when Pat McAfee got him fired? He has had constant problems with management since he has been at ESPN. And you got to remember, to my knowledge, Pat McAfee has never finished out a contract. August 2018, he agrees to a deal with Barstool Sports. Several months later, he quits. He claimed Barstool wasn't being transparent with something he called business operations. August 2019, he agrees to a deal with DAZN. 1 year later, he quits again, claiming that he couldn't deal with the restrictions of being on terrestrial radio. He moves the show to SiriusXM in September of 2020. 2 years later, Sirius quietly removes the show from their lineup. Are you noticing a pattern here? Seems to me that Pat McAfee does not work well with others. And that's not a bad thing because I'm the same way. I believe Pat McAfee started with ESPN in September of 2023, if I remember that correctly, which means we're just over 2 years into what I believe was a 5-year contract. Based on his history, this is normally around the time that Pat McAfee becomes disgruntled. And look, I don't blame him. When you're used to autonomy, when you're used to doing things your way, it is damn near impossible to go back to an environment where you're constantly being told no, or you're being told what you can and can't do. But KC ESPN has no control of the Pat McAfee show. They just license it. Yeah. I question whether ESPN is happy with the deal because ESPN is used to having complete control over their talent. And to his credit, there ain't no controlling Pat McAfee. If neither side is happy with the deal, and that is a big if, I'm just speculating here based on Pat McAfee's comments and his history, but if both sides are disgruntled, does Pat McAfee finish out his contract with ESPN, or do they go their separate ways? You tell me. Sound off in the comments below. I'll see you guys tomorrow.